Hey guys, welcome to my first Final Fantasy review. Today we are looking at Final Fantasy I Pixel Remaster for PS5. What I'll be addressing is if the title holds up to the original game, and what it does both good and bad compared to previous versions. In the case of the first game, I literally played and completed it back in 1990 on the NES, and since then I have played the other versions that have come out. As such, I feel I'm in a good position to judge just how this game has progressed over the years. When I recorded this, it ended up coming out to 32 minutes. And so I've decided to break it in half. One part synopsis, one part criticism. That second part is going to come out this weekend and have my criticisms. With all of that out of the way, spoilers ahead for a 35-year-old game. Kick back and relax while I review Final Fantasy I Pixel Remaster for the PS5. Chapter 1 The Inner Sea. In a time in which the land had started to rot, 4 warriors of light appeared in the city of Cornelia, each holding a dim crystal. These young warriors, who were foretold in a prophecy by a man named Lucan, were then taken to the king. He informs them that his daughter, Princess Sarah, had been abducted by his captain of the guard, Garland. The man has taken her north to the ruins of the Temple of Chaos, and so the king asks the heroes to go there and save his daughter to prove that they are the Warriors of Light. The heroes make their way there, and in a room filled with bats in front of an ominous black crystal, they confront the villainous Garland. He claims that he will ransom the princess to the king and take the kingdom for himself. Combat ensues while he boldly declares he will knock the heroes all down. Once killed, the heroes take the princess back to the castle, where the king rewards them by building a bridge in their honor. Princess Sarah also gives them a mysterious loot that has been passed down in her family. Crossing the bridge, our heroes set out on a journey to find the source of the land's decay. On the way to the port town Pravoka, they pass by a cave with a blind witch inside named Matoya. She has lost her crystal eye and asks them to find it for her. At the port town, the heroes take on a band of pirates. Once defeated, the captain relinquishes his ship to the heroes, claiming he will turn over a new leaf. Taking the boat, the heroes can sail across the inner sea to Elfheim, the land of, you guessed it, the elves. Their prince was put to sleep 5 years earlier by the Dark Elf King Atmos. Our heroes set off for his castle, hoping to find a cure for the prince. Arriving there, they find the castle in ruins and a king who says his crown has been stolen. He asks the young heroes to go to the nearby marsh cave and reclaim it. Blindly trusting this man, they go to the cave and do just that. The king then reveals he is in fact Atmos, and that he will use the crown and the crystal eye to become very powerful. Fortunately, the heroes put him down before he can achieve his lofty ambitions. With the crystal eye in their possession, they take it to Matoya. She is relieved to have it back and gives the heroes her best potion, the Jolt Tonic. She explains that this potion will cure any ailment, and also expresses some disappointment in the hero's appearance. Once given to the Elf Prince, he awakens and declares that the heroes must be the Light Warriors. He then gives them a mystic key, allowing them to open many treasure rooms. One of these rooms in Cornelia Castle contains Nitro. With the Nitro in hand, the heroes take it to the dwarves in the northwestern caves of the Inner Sea. They learn that there is a blacksmith amongst them looking for animatite to forge a powerful weapon. Another mentions a substance called Levystone that can make objects float. Finally, they find a dwarf digging a tunnel, and when given the nitro, he uses it to destroy a nearby landmass, creating a convenient canal. Chapter 2 The Cave of Earth. Immediately leaving the Inner Sea, the Light Warriors come upon the town of Melmond. The villagers talk of a vampire attacking and destroying their church, and that he lives in a cave to the south on the peninsula known as Devil's Tail. They also talk about how that area used to be very fertile, but now is the source of the rot. As such, our heroes head out to investigate. Venturing deep into that cave, the heroes find a star ruby, and eventually come face to face with the vampire who attacked Melmond. Defeating him, they find a strange stone beyond his chamber they cannot move. Returning to the town reveals that the rot continues even after the vampire's defeat, and so they seek out a wise man on the far west of the island, feeding the star ruby to a stone giant blocking the path. They talk to the man who informs them that the cave goes much deeper into the Earth Shrine. He gives them the Earth Rod to use on the stone to open the way. Returning to the stone in the cave, the rod reveals a staircase going deeper. Deeper still in the Earth Shrine, our heroes come to the home of the Earth Crystal and its guardian, the Fiend of Earth, Lich. He talks about how he is draining the Earth's power, and, as expected, a fight begins. Lich is a powerful spellcaster, but our heroes manage to take him down without too much trouble. Once the monster is destroyed, the heroes hold up one of their orbs and restore the light to the Earth Crystal, while absorbing some of his power for their own. Returning to Melmond reveals that the Earth is starting to recover, but there is little visual indication of that yet. There is also a man named Une who is trying to decipher ancient languages. Chapter 3: The Mountain of Fire. From here, the Light Warriors make their way to Crescent Lake, where they learn more about the legends from a council of 12 wise men. Here, it is explained that 400 years prior, the Wind Fiend appeared, and 200 years later, the Water Fiend appeared. Together, they wrecked the Northern civilization, claiming the Wind and Water crystals respectively. Recently, the Earth Fiend Lich appeared, causing the land to rot. But due to the Light Warriors defeating him, it has caused the Fire Fiend to appear 200 years early. Because of this, Mount Gulag has become active, and so our heroes are given a canoe to traverse the rivers and reach the volcano. They are also asked to return to the Wise Men once all 4 crystals are restored. Among the Wise Men is Sage Lucan, who is the one who gave the original prophecy of the Warriors of Light that set them on their path. Using the canoe, our heroes travel to the volcano, and after wading through literal lava, they make their way to the deepest level, the Fire Shrine. It is here at the altar that our heroes find another guardian awaiting them, the Fiend of Fire, Merilith. Armed with 6 scimitars and possessing a snake-like body, she specializes in physical combat. All the same, our heroes defeat her and restore the Fire Crystal. From here, they must discover a way to the northern continents. Chapter 4: The Journey North. With there being no docks for their boat up north, eventually the heroes look for clues. This leads them to revisit a couple of sages in Elfheim who stated earlier that when the time was right, they would be able to see the future. Now is the time for those visions. They explain that Levystone is in a cave deep in the mountains north of Mount Gulag. The other reveals that in the desert south of Crescent Lake, the Levystone will make a ship float. This information guides our heroes to venture into a dangerous ice cave, claim the stone, and take it to the desert where they uncover an ancient airship. Using this, they venture forth to the lands of the north. The game becomes more open-ended now, but I will assume a slight order based on what is immediately available. Heading to the northeast, they find the town of Gaia high in the mountains. It is one of the few places they can go with the new airship, and normally out of reach of most people. There, they learn a few things. That there is a scholar trying to learn the Lufenian language, but needs the Rosetta Stone to do so. A boy saw an object fall from the sky far to the west. Another explains that the town's ferry has gone missing, and that the ferry was able to pull a substance called oxyel from the bottom of the spring. Oxyel is a substance which allows people to breathe underwater. The heroes also find the pirate who abducted the ferry, which he admits to selling to the desert caravan. With nothing else to do here, the heroes move on. Chapter 5: The Test of Courage. While looking around, the heroes land on the Cardinal Islands, an archipelago with many caves visible from the sky. Exploring them, they find many dragons who are friendly, insisting that they do not engage in senseless killing. They explain that their king, Bahamut, will bestow power upon those who show courage, and that there is a citadel to the east where the test is conducted. They also explain that the symbol of courage changes shape, and so it may not be clear why it appears the way it does. Eventually the heroes meet with the king himself, who issues the challenge, and so they make their way to the Citadel of Trials. It is about now that the heroes learn the ancient airship has some serious limitations when it comes to landing. And so, even though they can see the citadel from the sky, they have to land about half a continent away and travel on foot. Once they get there, they are greeted by an old man who states that since they have the crown, he will permit them to undergo the trial. This is interesting because the only crown in their inventory is the one from the marsh cave that Atmos wanted. Unfortunately, the game doesn't provide any information on why the crown allows access, or if Atmos wanted the crown for something related to this. Regardless, traveling through the location and messing around with teleportation devices, the heroes finally discover the symbol of courage at the end, a rat tail. Once they travel across the continent back to their ship and fly back to Bahamut, he acknowledges their courage and enhances their power by bestowing new titles upon them. This upgrades the heroes' classes, and thus the Warriors of Light gain the strength to carry out their destiny. Chapter 6: The Sunken Shrine. With the Cardian Islands behind them, they head west to a town named Onrak, visible from the air. Similar to the problem with getting to the Citadel, the heroes have to land a far distance away and make their way on foot through the forest. In the town, they learn a few things, the most important of which being that 200 years ago, the Shrine of Water existed nearby but sank into the sea. It is now inhabited by mermaids. One citizen is trying to get down there to help the mermaids out, but their makeshift submarine can only hold so much air, and so it is too dangerous to use. There is also talk about a falling object up north, and a caravan in the desert across the river. There is also a friendly dragon here who will point them in the direction of the Cardian Islands and Bahamut. Given that the heroes know about the fairy abduction, that they need Oxiel to breathe in the water shrine, and that they know where the caravan is, they head out to rescue the abducted fairy. Knowing the location of the caravan, they find the merchant selling the bottled fairy for an outlandish 40,000 gil, which the heroes fork over. Taking the fairy back to the town of Gaia, she immediately flies back to her spring. When confronted, she happily retrieves some Oxiel as a reward. With the Oxiel in their possession, they return to Connacht. The lady who created the submarine explains that she has been waiting for them, and then flies off into the air, or maybe the sea, mysteriously. They then use the submarine and descend into the water temple, looking to restore another crystal. Entering the Sunken Shrine, the heroes explore and make their way to the upper levels first. It is here that they encounter the mermaids, who explain a few things. They talk about how the sea is darkening and eventually will turn them into sea foam. They explain that one of their kind was sent to the surface to try to get help. They also explain that Kraken, the fiend of water, is nesting by the water crystal, absorbing its power. Amongst their treasures is the Rosetta Stone, an object that is the key to deciphering the Lufenian language. The heroes then descend, finding many powerful treasures along the way, and eventually make it to the altar. Kraken is waiting for them, and praises their ingenuity for getting down so deep. The battle begins, and with how powerful the heroes have become, they claim an easy victory. Restoring the light to the crystal, they then return to the surface looking for clues on how to find the final crystal. Chapter 7: The Lufenians. Exploring leads of a mechanical creature falling to the north. The heroes canoe their way to a cave behind a waterfall. Finding the automaton spoken of, it tells them that it has been waiting and gives them a warp cube explaining that Tiamat is in the flying fortress. Afterwards, the creature short circuits and is no longer able to speak. With all other leads exhausted and the Rosetta Stone in hand, the heroes head back to Melmon looking for the scholar Une, who was working on deciphering the ancient Lufenian language. With the Rosetta Stone, he is able to complete his work and passes the knowledge on to the heroes, thus allowing them to speak to the modern-day Lufenians up north. They then depart for the final town, visible from the sky south of Gaia, and again find that the limited landing capabilities of their airship forces a long journey through a huge forest. Finally, they make it to Lufenia. Upon entering the town, the first bit of information they receive is that the airship was made by a man named Sid long ago. I am pretty sure this wasn't in the earlier versions of the story, but it's fine. Another explains that they have a legend about the Light Warriors appearing 400 years after the fall of their civilization. They also explain how, in their past, they had built things so advanced they had even went beyond the clouds. They also explain that their ancient home, A castle above the clouds, they sometimes called it, was none other than the Flying Fortress. This is where the Wind Crystal is, as well as the Wind Fiend Tiamat, and that it is accessible only by the Mirage Tower in the desert. With all the events that had happened, the Lufenians had come to believe that there was an entity behind the four fiends, and so they sent out 5 warriors to investigate some time earlier. They do not know for certain what happened to them, but it is said that they fell victim to the fiend's curse and were turned into bats. Finally, before leaving the city, the warriors are given a chime needed to access the Mirage Tower. It is then that they are finally able to access the final crystal and restore balance. Chapter 8: The Flying Fortress. Making their way to a nearby desert, they are again forced to land far away from the location and trek through the sand. Entering the tower, they make their way to its peak and find an automaton. It explains that the warp cube is needed to access the Flying Fortress, and that one of them took it to the west looking for their master. Fortunately, the Light Warriors are already in possession of the warp cube, and so they ascend to the Flying Fortress, the castle above the clouds. Appearing on the Flying Fortress so high in the sky that clouds are visible below them, they navigate their way through it looking for the Wind Crystal. Exploring around finds many ancient treasures, including some animantite. At the center of the fortress, they find a window showing the entire world. It is explained that the 4 altars where the crystals are sending mist of the 4 forces to a specific location, the Shrine of Chaos. Proceeding ahead, they cross a long bridge, encountering a deadly ancient weapon, a war mech. Despite its arsenal of horrific attacks, without too much trouble, the mechanized unit falls, leaving the Wind Fiend ahead, Tiamat. After a brief lament of its fallen allies and the bravado that it will be the last thing the heroes see, the battle begins. The battle is fierce, but in the end the heroes overcome the struggle and bring light to the final crystal. Chapter 9: The Time Loop. With the 4 crystals restored, it is back to Crescent Island for more instructions. But not before taking a brief detour back to the dwarves who forged the mighty Excalibur from the animantite. Speaking with the 12 wise men again reveals that there is indeed a manipulator behind the fiends. Now with the 4 forces flowing again, it is time to go to the Temple of Chaos. That by using the flowing power of the crystals, they can break through the wall of time, traveling 2,000 years into the past, where the architect of this disaster is hiding. More of our heroes is revealed here, and though they have no memory of it, before they appeared, they existed in a different state of time. They are now trapped as a part of that time loop, and it can only be broken by going back and destroying the manipulator who put it in motion. The wise men also lament that the time loop fundamentally exists because of forces in the past showing up and hijacking the crystals. Using that stolen power, they can then send it back in time to fuel their arrival at 200-year intervals, and thus it is a paradox without end. With all of that cleared up, the heroes head to the Temple of Chaos to break this time loop once and for all. Chapter 10: The Temple of Chaos. Flying back to the Temple of Chaos, they return to the very room that Garland had fled to, the room that contains 5 bats. Our heroes are aware now that these are not in fact bats, but cursed Lufenians. Fortunately, with the light of the crystals restored, they are now able to speak and impart words of wisdom to our heroes. They explain that they were the 5 warriors sent out by their people to locate the source of the world's ruins 400 years ago, back when Tiamat first appeared. The Fiend's purpose was to absorb power from the crystals and send it through the black crystal in this very room, and from there into the past. Now with the 4 heroes in control of that power themselves, the Lufenians encourage them to shine their light on the black crystal and open the time portal. They do so and step 2,000 years into the past, into a pristine Temple of Chaos. Traveling through its halls and fighting vicious monsters left and right, they eventually come upon an ancient tablet blocking the way down. It is then that they remembered the lute Princess Sarah gave them after her rescue, and so after playing the melody on it, the way forward unlocks. From there, they encounter each of the fiends that they had already defeated, but before they were sent into the future. Each one is strangely stronger than before, but our heroes slay them nonetheless. Finally reaching the very bottom of the temple, Standing in the center of an elaborate room is the man they thought they had killed, Garland, the Knight of Cornelia. He explains in 2,000 years they did indeed kill him in the Shrine of Chaos, but the fiends used the power of the crystals to send him back in time to escape that fate. Once in the past, he sent the fiends forward to take their proper place, where they would once again use their power to send him back in time. He laments that in 2,000 years he will remember none of this, but then changes into the ghastly form of chaos itself. Finally, he states that he will be reborn again, and each time the Light Warriors will appear only to be killed by him again and again, in an endless cycle of destruction that he created. From there, the final battle takes place, with powerful magic and fearsome attacks being slung against the heroes. They persevere, fight back, and triumph over him, breaking his time loop in the process. With Garland defeated and his fiends destroyed, they returned at the present to a world different than the one they left. No longer did the fiends show up and disrupt the prosperity of the world, and so once again they come to Cornelia, where the king, the queen, Princess Sarah, and even the oblivious Garland await them. Returning to that world, they are strangers, for nobody knows the plight that they prevented, and yet somehow within the tales of fantasy that people tell, the memory of their deeds lives on. Thanks for watching the video, guys. Stay tuned for part 2 over the weekend, where I actually criticize the story of the game. I know the synopsis took almost 20 minutes, so I feel it would be better if I split it off from the review. Going forward, I will think about this a bit more carefully. If you really like this review, a like and subscribe go a long ways to helping the channel out. If you are in a position to do more, then consider joining my Patreon or becoming a channel member. Doing so will get you access to my Discord, where we can talk more directly, and thus have some input on future topics. Well, that's all I got for you today, guys. Be safe, and may the light of the crystals lead to prosperity.